Welcome back to the channel, and I want to thanks to all the people that are constantly subscribing. But in this video, I'm going to create this using AutoCAD 3D, and I'm going to show you two different ways of creating this. Now, one way is my traditional way of creating this by developing different shapes. The other way I'm going to do this one is by manipulating the UCS. So I have done that in a few videos, but not a lot. So I'm going to do that in this video and show you that you can come up with the same solution if you know how to manipulate the UCS. So this one might be a little longer than normal, but go ahead, sit back and enjoy, and let's get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and do what we always do. Let's go ahead and turn the grid off. And then we're going to turn our ortho on. And then we're going to verify what running O snaps I have. So these are going to be the ones that I typically use. Also, you may see that my ribbon is already changed to the 3D profile. You can do that by selecting this little sprocket here and then selecting 3D modeling, right? So that'll be one way of switching it over. All right, so the first method I'm going to use to create this in 3D is going to be my traditional way that I like to do things, right? I like to create some shapes and then I'll go from there. So let's start off with the polyline, right? And the polyline command is located here. And what I'll do is go ahead and click here, go up a distance of 30. Kind of zoom out a little bit. I'll go to the right, 100. It looks like I might be off the screen. Oh, I'm able to pull it over. I'll go down 30. To the inside 10. Let's go up a height of 10. To the left 80. Down 10. And then C to close. Alright, so now we have our shape created, right? That's one shape that I'm going to need. The other shape I'm going to need is going to be some humps that go along here on the top. So I'll go ahead and create those now. And the way that I'm going to do that is just by creating a circle. So I'll use C, enter. I'll click here and I'll put the radius in, which happens to be, let's see, I'm kind of referring back to the drawing, 25. And then I'll put the other circle center radius at that center. And the radius of that circle is going to be 22.5. All right, let's go ahead and draw a line now from this quadrant straight across to this quadrant. Use the trim command, so trim, and I'm just typing them in. That's TR, enter. Let's get rid of this bottom portion as well as this one right here in the middle. Escape. Let's highlight all of this and join it together. So J, enter. Go ahead and make a copy of this, so I'll use copy, since we're going to need two of them, right? And then I need to create one more shape in order to make this, right? I need a rectangle that is about 30 inches wide. The height really kind of, I guess I would say it doesn't matter, but it has to be taller than 15, right? So I'll go ahead and create that. I'll go ahead and create a rectangle. Rectangle is located here. Let's go ahead and click here. And then the numbers are the coordinates I'm going to need. It should be 30 going in the X direction, comma, and then how tall. This number has to be greater than 15. So if you make it 15, well, it has to be 15 or greater, right? So if I make it 15, that's okay, but I always like to leave myself a little bit more cushion. So let's go ahead and make that number 16. What that does is just eliminate any chances of it making a skin or making some kind of super thin part that it leaves on there. Okay. Let's take a look at this in an isometric view. And I'll also go ahead and change this to my 3D wireframe, right? So I'll go ahead and use the regular wireframe. And then let's go ahead and start manipulating some of this. So I'll start off with this shape first. I'll select it here. I'll go to the extrude command. And since I pre-selected it, it's ready to give me the height. Height of this will be 60. Let's go ahead and extrude both of those next. So I'll go to extrude, select both of these, hit enter. And then it doesn't matter which direction you go, but in this case, I'm going to give it a height of, let's see, 15. And then this is the part that's going through all of it. So this has to be at least 100 or greater, right? So I'll just extrude this one. And let's go ahead and make that 100 just to keep the numbers easy and plain, right? All right, so this is all I need to create my shape here. Now I do have it in wireframe, so I can take advantage of my gizmo. So I'll go to the rotate gizmo. I'll go ahead and select this shape. I'll select the red axis here and I'm just going to stand this shape going up in that direction, right? Now I always like to keep an eye on which way is my front view. So let me rotate this around to where I can see that the front is going this way. This is the right side and this is the top. I try to keep it as closely resembling what my drawing is if I know that, or the most detailed part of my drawing should be the front view. Alright, let's go ahead and rotate this. So I'm going to select this green axis first. Go ahead and stand it up. And then I'll spin it around this blue axis here. Okay, so now I have that shape, right? Next, I'm going to go ahead and move this into position. So I'm just going to select it here. I'll use the move command, so M enter. Select from this endpoint, that midpoint, going to that midpoint, right? And now I need to drop this down. So I'm going to change my gizmo to a move gizmo. I'll go ahead and select here. I'll select this purple or blue axis, come straight down, I'm pointing down. I'll type in 15. Next, I'll use the subtract function. So this is that Boolean operation. So I'll go to subtract. I'll select the object I want to keep first, go ahead and hit enter, and then select the object you want to subtract from it, which will be that inside cube there. Alright, so now I have those created. Next, I'll go ahead and stand these two up. So I'm going to select both of them. Let's go ahead and switch over to the rotate gizmo. Select the red axis, and then click here. Now I need to just move these in place, so I'll move the first one here. I'll go from that end point here to here, and then I want to move this one, right? So I'm going to move this one, and I'm just using the regular move command from this end point here to that end point. All right, so I have both of those on here. Let's go ahead and union all this stuff together. So I'll go to union, select my shapes, go ahead and hit enter, and now this is all one piece. And then the last step I need to do is jump over to the solid tab, choose the fillet edge, and then I'm going to give it the radius that I need it to be. So I'll go to radius should be 15. I'll select that edge there and this edge here, go ahead and hit enter twice. And now I have it, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at this in shades of gray real quick, just so you see that I did in fact create that shape rather quickly, right? So this is my traditional way of doing it. The other way works totally fine. It works absolutely the same, except we're going to be doing a little bit more manipulating with the UCS. My way, I'm more or less manipulating the parts. This other way, you're going to see that I'm going to manipulate the UCS in order to get it where I want it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started going at it that way, right? Let's go ahead and jump back to the Home tab, and then I'm going to take this off of Shades of Gray and go back to 2D wireframe. All right, I'll go to the front view, and let's kind of pan this over, and I'll create my first shape, right? So I'm in the front view. I have to be careful and look which way my X and Y is, right? So I have X, Y, and Z. I want this view to be shown as X and Y, right? I can manipulate this UCS in one or two ways. So because I clicked on the word front here, it automatically locked it to this plane. I can take advantage of that by selecting this drop down here, and then I have three options that I can select. I don't have a face of anything, I don't have an object, but I do have the view. So once I select this, watch what happens to the UCS here. So when I select it there, now I have X and Y going the directions that I wanted, and Z is pointing at me. Now if you want to remember more or want to use more of the UCS, remember the right hand rule. That's something that you can probably look up on Google or some of that nature. But what that is just a way to manipulate the UCS and keep all of your numbers going in the positive direction, or keep all of your axes, I should say, pointing in the positive direction. And that is called the right hand rule. All right, so now I have my view created. Let's go ahead and create a rectangle on this one. So I'll go to rectangle, I'll click here, and I'm just going to kind of start off by creating that shape that I normally would, right? So this is going to be 100, comma, and then how tall it is, it's going to be 30. So I have my first shape, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at this kind of in that isometric view. And this is one of those things that will drive you a little bit crazy sometimes. You know what? It's a lot easier if I put this back on the UCS. There we go. And now when I go back and put this in the isometric, it shouldn't be that bad. There we go. Okay, so here's my front view, right? So I just put it back to the UCS, and that basically set it up correctly. All right, so here's my view, or my shape that I want to start off with. Let's go ahead and extrude this. And I want to give it a distance going this direction, 60. All right, so I have that shape created. Now I want to go ahead and put that cutout through here, right? I want to once again manipulate down to this face. There's a couple of different ways to do this, and I'm going to kind of give them to you both ways. So you can see that I want my X and Y. The X is in the right direction. The Y I want going straight up from, or in line with this leg here, and I want the Z pointing this direction. We can use what we did before, or we can use the flip handles. So you can imagine that if you're grabbing the X axis and then you're spinning it on that X axis, that's what these flip handles are for. So you can grab whichever axis you want and manipulate it off of that. So when I go to the X flip here, you're going to see that now I can manipulate this only on the X axis. So if I want this thing to be pointing this direction, right? And I want the Z axis coming at me, I'll do a left click here. So now I just manipulated that. Now if I had my ortho turned off, I could have manipulated it with whatever kind of angles I wanted. But this is one of those ways where you can manipulate it. Another way that you can do it, you can also pick 3 points. What I mean by that is that if I can choose this axis here and I go 3 points, the first thing it's going to do is say, hey, where you want your origin at? I'll pick my origin at this endpoint. Then it says which way you want your X direction. I'll pick this endpoint. And then it says which way you want your Y direction. I'll pick that point. So that's another way. And now the benefit of using the 3-point is that I put my UCS right at that endpoint. So I can use the absolute values to place this. Meaning that next I want to create a rectangle. And then I want to type in the starting point of that rectangle, right? So it's 10 over to the right, and then it's 30 tall, right? So my first point here will be at 10, 0, because I want to start it at 10 units to the right. And then I want to type in the size of my rectangle. The X value will be 80, comma, the height of this will be 10. And we'll switch back to the drawing, and I can show you where I got all of these numbers from. So basically I wanted to show you exactly where each one of these at. Now, when I was creating this view, I was starting off at this location. What I wanted to do was start that rectangle at this point. My UCS is sitting at here. The point I wanted to start my rectangle is here. So if I'm looking at it on this view, this is where the UCS is, and this is where I want to start it at. Once I did that, or I determined that, that's why when I started the rectangle command, I told it to go 10 units to the right, which is here, and then I wanted to go 0 units up. So that put my point here. And then the other points that I needed for my rectangle was this corner. So that's why when I typed in the next number, I said, hey, it needs to be 80 from this point and 10 up from that point. And that gave me my rectangle located in that specific position. Okay, so my location of my rectangle is in the right place. Let's go ahead and extrude just this rectangle. Go ahead and hit enter. And then I'm going to send it through this direction. Now, it has to be greater than or equal to the distance I go across. I can type in 60, but usually when I'm doing a subtract, I send it all the way through because it's easier to select in. Once I go to subtract, I select the object I want to keep first, which is this one. Go ahead and hit enter. And then the object I want to subtract, which is here. So it's a lot easier to select it from the back here. Okay. If I want to do some math or things of that nature, I can also manipulate where my little hump is that's going here. Before I do that, let's work on this side. So let's manipulate our UCS facing this direction, and I want to put it exactly at this endpoint. So I'll go ahead and use the 3-point again. I'm going to place the origin at that endpoint. I'm going to place my X direction going that direction and my Y direction going up this direction. All right, so now I manipulated my UCS. Remember that I can create a rectangle now, and let's go back to the drawing to find out where that's located. Okay, so you have to imagine that we're located on the isometric, we're located here, or in reference to here. So I want to create this rectangle, and I want to go ahead and put it at this endpoint, right? So therefore, my first coordinates that I need is that when I start the rectangle command, I need to tell it how many units to go here in the X direction and how many to go in the Y direction. In our case, our X direction is located between here and here. All right, we have to do a little bit of math to do that. We have 60, we can minus 30 and minus the 15, this number here should be 15. Okay, and I will apologize for my handwriting here with the mouse. All right, so my first number is 15 comma, and how many units going up? Well, it tells me right here that it is 15 going up. So I'm gonna start off with the rectangle command, and I'm gonna type in 15 comma 15. That's gonna go ahead and put me at this point. Now I need to tell it where to go from here, right? So I need to get up to this point. These humps here are not here yet. That's what you're seeing here are these arcs that are located here. But what I want to do is I want to get to at least this point, if not taller than that point. There's nothing wrong with going over that point. I just cannot be shorter than that point. All right, so I started the rectangle command. I'm going to go 15 units to the right, 15 units up. And now it's asking me, what do you want put my next point? Well, that number will be 30 going this direction, right? And then we have to figure out how tall this is. Well, we have the overall height sitting here, sitting at 30, and we minus the 15. So this number here, going from here on up, has to be at least 15 or greater. So you're going to see me maybe put in a number like 16, right? I always like to go over, because sometimes if you're not exactly right, I've seen this too many times, is that AutoCAD or any of your 3D programs, you can be super close here and it will actually leave a little skin there. So in order to alleviate that, I usually just make that number greater than what I needed. All right, so let's switch back over. Okay, so I'll start the rectangle command. I'm going to type in the first numbers that I told you. So I want to go 15 comma 15, hit enter, and it should put it in that location. Now I need to tell it how far in the X direction. So remember that number was 30, comma, how tall I want it to be. Remember that it has to be at least 15, if not greater. I always like to put in a number of 16 just to be just a little taller than that. Go ahead and hit enter, and you can see that it does put my rectangle at that location. All right, next let's go ahead and extrude and select my rectangle I just created and hit enter, and I'm gonna send it all the way through my part. All right, next we can go ahead and subtract this. So let's go to our subtract. Select the object I want to keep first, go ahead and hit enter, and then the object I want to subtract from it is this one here. Alright, so now we have that shape created. Next I need to go ahead and put these little humps on here, or arcs, or whatever you want to call them. Now, depending on how you want to manipulate this, you can put it in one or two places. So, I can go ahead and specify my UCS somewhere here, and then I can use just a negative 25 to go to the left, make my circle, and away I go. Right? Let's go ahead and try it that way. Or we can, you know what, now that I'm thinking about something, there's another command that I do want to show you that we haven't had too many chances of using, and that's going to be the slice command. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two cylinders, and then I'm going to subtract one of them out of it, and then I'm going to slice it, and then we can go from there and copy it. And I'm just now thinking of this on the fly. All right, so what we're going to do is let's go ahead and manipulate our UCS and get it right at that end point that's located here on the top. So I'll choose this 3 point, I'll go to this endpoint, the X direction, I want it to go this direction, so I'll left click here. The Y direction, I want to go up, so I'll left click here, and then it's set up, right? So now when I create my first point, I know that my circle is 25 units to the left. So therefore my first number should be a negative 25. All right, let's go ahead and create a cylinder, and this is another thing that I don't use much of, but I'll use them today. I'm going to use, these are primitive or automatic things for you. I could have used a box when I created these other things. So let's go ahead and use a cylinder. Let's click cylinder. It's asking me, hey, where do you want to put that first cylinder location at? Remember I told you that it's going to be negative 25 because I want to go negative 25 from this X position, comma, and I want to go 0 in the Y direction. I'll go ahead and hit enter. It should put that circle there. Next, it's asking me for a radius here at the bottom. So the radius I'm going to type in should be 25. Go ahead and hit enter. And then I have to either give it a direction, which is what I'm going to face here and point, and then I have to give it a distance. And our distance here should be 15. All right, so we have that cylinder created. Let me switch between shades of gray so you can take a look at what we have going on here. And now I'm going to switch back to wireframe. And then I'll put the other circle in there, right? So let's go back to the cylinder command. So cylinder, it's asking me for my first point again. That's negative 25, comma 0. I could also use my O snaps and went to the center of that. Go ahead and hit enter. Now it's asking me for the radius. Remember that radius is 22.5. Go ahead and hit enter. Then I have to give it a direction and a distance. So I'm aiming that direction, which is going to be 15. There's my direction and distance. All right, let's go ahead and subtract these from each other. Now the reason I have to subtract them, if we go back and look at shades of gray, you can see that they're both solids. Let's see if I can do this. Sometimes it works really well with shades of gray and sometimes it doesn't. Let's see what we got. So I'm going to go to subtract. I want to select this outside cylinder first. Go ahead and hit enter. And then I want to select the inside cylinder. And this is what I'm talking about. Sometimes it gets a little bit more difficult to select them both in shades of gray. Right, so it's a little bit weird. Let's go ahead and escape out of that. And I was hoping that it would work, but let's go to the wireframe. And then when I go to subtract, it's a lot easier. So I'll go to subtract. I want to select this outside cylinder first. Go ahead and hit enter. And then I can select this inside cylinder here and then hit enter. Now let's take a look at that in shades of gray. And you can see that it is actually cut through that. All right. One thing I want to do now is that I have this cylinder and I want to cut it. So is there a way that I can cut this and slice right through that? Well, I just actually said the command for you. The command we're going to be discussing now is going to be slice. So we're going to cut this object into two parts. Let's go to slice. And then it says, what object do I want to slice? So I want to go ahead and slice this cylinder. Hit enter. And then it says, how do you want to slice this, right? We have some things that we can do. And two ways that I usually like to do it. My favorite way is a 3-point. And also I can use these planes as well. So you see how I have the XZ plane. Well, one of my options here is the ZX plane. And when I select that, it's going to ask me what point along the ZX plane do I want to use. And if I use this endpoint, it should slice it, right? It's asking me, do I want to keep both sides or do I want to subtract both? Or subtract one of them. I usually like to keep both sides. It makes things super simple. So I'll just hit enter. And you can see that it did cut that into two pieces. So I can go ahead and delete that piece there, right? That's absolutely one way of using the slice command. And then I'll show you my 3-point method, which is the way I prefer to do it. Let's back up and back up one more time. Let's go to the slice command. I'm going to select the object I want to slice. Go ahead and hit enter. And this is for somebody that has something at an angle that they really want to slice, but 3-point. I'm going to select 3 points along this plane. So I'll select this endpoint, and it really doesn't matter what 3 points you select. Let's go ahead and select maybe that endpoint and then this one, right? And then do I want to keep both sides? In this case, I always answer yes to that question. So I'll just hit enter, and you can see that it did indeed slice that just like the other method did, right? Okay, so we have it sliced and we have it created. Let's go ahead and move this, or in my case, copy this over to here. So I'll choose the copy command. I'll select that, go ahead and hit enter, zoom in, go to this endpoint and place it along that endpoint. All right, I'm going to union this together. So I'll go to union and just put a window on both of these. All right. And now it's always a good custom practice to go ahead and put your UCS back to the World Coordinate Center. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll select UCS here. That just puts it back. And then I'll go ahead and do what we did on the other one. We're going to go to solid. We'll go to fillet edge. Radius should be 15 already. And then we'll select that edge and this edge. And hit enter twice, right? So two methods of doing this. We produce the exact same drawing with this. One way, it just requires you to see the shapes beforehand. The other way just says, hey, create the shapes, and then if you understand what's happening, you can kind of pinch off of it and build off of it, and you can still get to the same answer. The question I always get, most people will ask me, which way is the right way of doing it? Well, in reality, there is no right way. There's your way of doing it. All right, so we have both of these shapes. Let's go ahead and delete one of them, and then we can go ahead and knock out the drafting portion. So I'll go ahead and delete this one. Let's zoom to the extents. Go ahead and go to here, and everything looks great. Let's go ahead and switch over to the layout tab. Once in the layout tab, I'll usually delete here, and then I'll go ahead and create a rectangle. So REC, lower left corner will be at 0, 0, enter, upper right corner, let's make it on an A size piece of paper, will be 11, comma 8.5. Let's go ahead and offset that. So enter 0.25 is going to be my distance, and I'll offset this to the inside. Take a look at our page setup manager. So I'll go to layout, go to page setup. Once the dialog box appears, go to modify. And then what I'll choose here is, DWG to PDF. ANSI full bleed, 11 by 8.5. I'll choose window here. And what I like to do is choose this inside rectangle. So I'll go from here to there. I'm going to center this plot, and 1 to 1 is fine. Go ahead and hit OK, and then close. All right, now we're ready to start bringing in some views. So I'll go ahead and select base from model space. Give it a little bit of time. It's going to go back there and look in the model space for us. And this kind of depends on how fast your AutoCAD is or how much memory or your RAM and things of that nature, but it should be popping up here any second now. All right, and there it is. I'll go ahead and click here. So one left click here. Go ahead and hit enter on your keyboard, and then I can go ahead and place my other views. So I'll go ahead and left click here, go left click here, and then go ahead and put my isometric here. Now once I did my last left click, do a right click, choose the enter button, and it should automatically produce all of those views for you. Let's go ahead and modify this view a little bit. So let's escape out of that. I'll double click on this view, and it should bring me to the edit. And depending on how you want this to look, let's choose the visible lines this time. So this looks like something we may have drawn in 2D AutoCAD. Let's go ahead and escape out of that. So I don't have to have the shading around it, but it looks really good. These are the other views and things of that nature. We can kind of manipulate that. Let's go back to the home tab here, and I'm looking for the layer properties. And once I select this, I'm just going to change the color of my hidden lines here. So both of these that have hidden next to them, I'm just going to select this icon here and put them on color number 1. And I'm trying to think, do we have any center lines there? I think we do. All right, and let's go ahead and create a layer called center and dimension, right? So CEN. And then I'll create one more, that's my DIM. The center layer, let's go ahead and put that at a color of, let's call it CN. So that's going to be color number 4. And then we're going to go ahead and change the line type. Load. I'll choose center 2, hit OK, and then select center 2 again, hit OK. And then underneath my dimensions, let's make them blue. So that's color number 5. And then we just need to tell it that the line type for this is a continuous line. Alright, so we have our center line created, our dimension line created, and our hidden lines are automatically changed in the background. If I wanted to change the color of my visible lines, that's what these two colors are here. So I can change those two colors as well. So if I wanted those colors to be green, for example, I can do that as well. Let's go ahead and close this. Let's go ahead and place our center marks on our drawing. So I'm going to switch to the annotate tab here. I'll type in center layer. Let's go ahead and put it on the send layer. And then let's go ahead and, well, there's no need to adjust the extension on them. We're doing stuff in paper space. So let's go ahead and put our center marks on these two circles here. We can go ahead and put our center line. So I'll use the bisecting one and select this line and that one, as well as this line and this one. And then if you want to put the other center mark that's running right through here, we can do those as well. So let's go ahead and, center lines that are running through there. So we do have a couple of center lines that are running through there as well. All right, let's go ahead and select these 4 lines here. I'll just use a window to select them rather quickly. Open up your properties window, and you can do that by doing a right click and going down to properties. We'll open up this window. Go over here and find your line type scale. Let's go ahead and make that number. Let's see what 0.625 give me. Yep, it does give me the little dash in between them. Perfect. Let's escape out of that. And then here, we're just going to go ahead and shorten both of these up. So I'll select that center mark here, and then this one. And remember that we're just trying to put these centers on top of each other. And it looks like when I did that, I actually grabbed both of them. Okay, that's what I wanted to happen. So I'm going to place that one onto this one. Let's go and take a look at here. And there's nothing wrong if you did leave these the way that they are. It's just me, I kind of like to get rid of that stuff and make sure that it's nice and clean on my drawing. So let's go ahead and select both of these center lines again. Let's go over here in the window. It says all. I'm just going to tell it to take a look at the center marks only. And then with the extension on my left and right, you can go ahead and make both of those 0. Okay. Alright, so all of that stuff is done. Last thing we need to do is throw some dimensions on this, right? We're going to go to our dimension style first. So let's select here. Go to modify. Once again, the way my brain works, I work from right to left, so I'll go to my primary units first. Let's go ahead and suppress those trailing zeros. Then underneath the fit, we don't have to worry about changing this number. We're dealing with paper space. Underneath the text, we're going to adjust here to 0.125. And then underneath my symbols and arrows, I'll go ahead and tell this to be none, hit OK, and then close. Let's go ahead and put all of our dimensions on. So this is just going to be linear dimensions for most of them. So let's go to linear. I'll click that endpoint first. And then I want to place it at that endpoint. And now I can see that my dimensions are dark, and that's one of the things I forgot to do. Let's go ahead and delete that dimension real quick. And I forgot to go ahead and set my dimension to the dimension one. There we go. Alright, now I'll go back to my linear dimension. Pick that endpoint here, that endpoint. Alright, so now I want to make sure my 10 faces to the outside, so I have to pick it in a certain order. So I'll go to linear, I'll pick this endpoint first, going to that endpoint, and it'll throw my dimension out to the left side. Go back to the linear command, this endpoint to this one. Let's click at this endpoint here. Kind of working my way around. I'm just going to hit the enter button to take me back to the linear command. I'll keep placing these dimensions on. And once again, all I'm doing is hitting enter just to take me back to the last command. So I'm going to go ahead and place this dimension here. And you've seen me do this if you watched any of my other videos. You've probably seen me do this countless amounts of time. Okay, so rather simple. If you just kind of understand the way AutoCAD is working, sometimes it makes doing dimensions a lot easier, especially when you're creating these dimensions and throwing them to certain sizes, or certain sides, I should say. Let's go ahead and finally put the rest of these dimensions on. All right. So here we go. This is almost completed. We just have a couple of more dimensions that we need to put here at the bottom. I'm going to throw that dimension out here to the side, going that direction. Once again, I'll start at this endpoint, and I want that dimension to be to the left, so that's why I'm creating it in a certain way. And then let's do our radial dimensions, right? So let's go up to radial. Pick that endpoint here. Just hit the enter button. I'll select these ones as well. Alright. And then we can go ahead and modify these if you want. So I can select this one and do the exact same thing. And this one is actually a reference dimension as well. Alright. But you can go ahead and do that, and the easiest way of doing that is you just double click on the dimension. It should bring you up in the editing, and then you will go to the home button, or hit the end button and then hit enter. And then I can type in my 2 places. So that's all that I'm doing on this part. So you can see that AutoCAD is really not a hard program to learn, especially when you deal with 3D. A lot of times when I'm teaching this course, or if I'm showing somebody about how to do AutoCAD in 3D, I honestly, and I'll be realistic with you, I tell them that it's only 4 commands and 3 Boolean commands that you need to learn how. Now, the other stuff is just some kind of variance of that, but if you learn the 4 commands, and I'll show you what those are here in a second, it makes your life super simple in this program. We don't have a lot of tools to create a lot of unique things, and this is going to apply to any of your 3D programs. So if you've seen me work any kind of Inventor software or some of the other 3D softwares that I use, there's only 4 commands that you have to know. Let's go back to the Home tab. The 4 commands are listed here. That's all we have to create 3D. Believe it or not, that's what we have. Now, we have to manipulate things in such a way that if you master these 4 commands, as well as these 3 Boolean commands, that's all you have to know in order to do 3D AutoCAD and be totally successful at it. Now, understanding when to use one, and sometimes it could be either one, but a lot of times one will give you an advantage over the other, but you can still do some things with learning them both. So just, kind of remember that. All right, so I quit waffling along and wasting your time this evening. I want to thank you for watching this. If you know anybody that likes or can benefit from these videos, please go ahead and send them my way. Once again, I'm super appreciative to all the people that are subscribing to my channel and that are coming back and watching these videos. And if you're one of the people that ain't subscribed, I'm just kind of going curious of why you haven't subscribed. I have a, currently speaking, I have, I think, over 300 and some videos located on my page. So I'm pretty sure I have something that will teach you how to use AutoCAD as well as Inventor, right? So thank you for watching this. I really do appreciate you taking your time out today to spend, about 40 minutes, 50 minutes with me. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.